And I'm live. Well, good morning, everybody. It is Monday. What's the date today? 15th? Yes, Monday, June 15th. And I'm really exhausted this morning. Last night was a fun night, but a long night. I watched the UFC Freedom 250 event. And then after that, I didn't check the news or anything, and I looked into and I started watching the Carolina Vegas final, which was taped. And congrats to the Carolina Hurricanes who have won. That was great. And yeah, so it was a long night for me. I'm still a little bit tired, hence the big ass cup of coffee. And I've only got one joint into me, so I'm somewhat sober, which sucks. Um, So what do I want to cover today? I guess I'll start off with the UFC 250 Freedom 250 event that happened last night at the White House lawn. So a few things to talk about, I guess, would be first and foremost the good and the bad. I actually took some notes last night as I was watching because I didn't know if I'd be doing this today. But it was a good event. Um, no classic matches or anything like that. Like all the fights were good, but overall, none of them were really, I don't think, memorable. Congrats to the winners all the same. The other notes that I kind of took on it, first and foremost, I guess, to Dana White. Dana, if you're showing up to the White House, like at least look the part. Don't show up to the White House wearing sneakers, no tie. I was taught by my father a long time ago, always wear a tie if you're either begging for money or looking for a job. So I don't think Dana White's, and we should add in a third. If you go to the head of state house of a country, you should probably look the part. He looked like a complete slob. So the event itself was kind of strange, to say the least. Not in a bad way, just in a very odd way. So it kind of started out first and foremost. I thought that the crowd, the actual fans, were going to be around there. Like I've got no concept of the White House lawn or how big it is or whatever. Oh, that's good stuff. But no, all the commoners like you and I, they had them down the road somewhere. I guess somewhere on the mall area where they had a big open field and they had all the real UFC fans were penned in there. The actual event on the White House lawn itself was fairly small. UFC did a good job putting it all together, but basically you had the cage and then around it, I'm saying there's maybe 500 seats, so it's a very small crowd. And that crowd was made up of largely politicians and rich CEO types. Uh, and then, just for looks, in the very back row, they had some Navy people who were cheering. But other than that, it was all like your CEO types, Zuckerberg and that crowd. It was extremely quiet event. It was the quietest event that I've ever watched, and I've been a UFC fan for 30 plus years. And it was just really, you could hear a pin drop quite often while they were fighting, and that was weird. And it dawned on me pretty quickly it was because the people who were in the crowd there around the cage, they weren't even paying attention. Like if you look at the videos, they're all off networking and socializing and stuff. And meanwhile, there's a couple guys beating each other up. It was pretty clear that the crowd that was there wasn't into it. I think they were there to say that they were there, but they didn't have the foggiest idea about the fighters or anything else. So that's one thing that I picked up on was it was a very quiet event. It was also a very militarily focused event. Everything was military. It was every time they would do cut to like a vignette or something, it was always military focused. And when the first video came up, and it was a video, I think, of Pearl Harbor. Now, what Pearl Harbor has to do with anything in 2026, I'm not sure. But it was that kind of stuff. Like, they would, after every fight, they would cut to like some sort of uh, America, video, which would be fine, right? Like, unless it was if it was more diversified, I think it wouldn't have stuck out in my mind as such, but it was like every single video was about the military, whether it be, Pearl Harbor or the War of 1812. They had one on that, 9/11, all this stuff that was always pro military, military, military. And then, as I was going on, at first I thought it was kind of funny and, typical American rah rah stuff. But the longer I was watching the event, it just got sadder and sadder, because it dawned on me that, this was all straight up propaganda. And I was just saying to myself in my head, like, come on, guys, do you not have anything else to be proud of? Your science and tech, your culture, your art, uh, you know, focus on those things, not just every single thing was based on the military. So it was basically, the entire event to me seemed like a promotion for the U.S. military, and also a means of propagandizing and brainwashing the people in America. Military good, military good, military good. Don't question budgets. That was the vibe I was getting as an outsider. So, they had the videos. Also, every fighter would be accompanied out by what they called a hero, and it would just be, some guy who was a Purple Heart winner or some crap like that. They were all kind of military and first responders, stuff like that. Again, military, military, military. Got to be proud. Got to be proud. You got the Navy in the back, out in their gay little sailor suits, all cheering. So that was, the hard camera was on them. Um, the walkouts with, the heroes, and the whole vignette thing with the videos was just so over the top done. And it just, well, it was kind of sad to watch, to be honest with you. And I thought in my mind, like, this is the perfect representation of America and its decline. Because you got, Donald Trump coming out at one point, out to the balcony on the White House to give a little wave to the plebs, And I thought to myself as I was watching this, I was like, man, I bet you this is what it must have been when Emperor Nero went to the Colosseum in Rome, and he shows up in his little private box and everybody cheers for him. And I thought to myself, wow, what's old is new again, I guess, in the world of empire. So I took that away from it. The other things that I took away from it, as I said, all the actual seats that you'd want to have fans in, knowledgeable fans. The knowledgeable fans were all down the road, and like I said, these were all corporate types. And usually, if you watch a UFC event, they'll always zoom in on the crowd and people in the crowd who are celebrities and stuff. So you'll see a lot of current or former UFC fighters who are in the crowd, and they'll zoom in on them, and the crowd will give them a big pop because they all know who they are because they're UFC fans, right? Or it'll be a sports athlete, LeBron will be there, or whoever, I don't know. Pick your athlete, they'll zoom in on them, or maybe it might have an actor or two or a musician. But basically, all of the arts and sports type zoom ins were all replaced with these zoom ins of corporate CEOs. And it was really strange, and they weren't getting any pop because nobody knew who they were. Besides Zuckerberg, he was there, so they zoomed in on him. Nobody cheered for him because it's Zuckerberg. But they also had, the crypto.com CEO. It's like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, why do I care about him? And then it dawned on me. this is the elite class around the ring. And these are the people in the 21st century that were supposed to be considered heroes. Elon Musk is our hero. Jeff Bezos is our hero. Uh, Zuckerberg, whoever, Larry Fink, all these guys. We're supposed to look at them as a sense of, pride and aspiration, I guess, as opposed to absolute disdain. But I think that's going to change real quick. So I took that away from it. The other thing that I took away from it, like I said, it was all very militarized, all very strange. Like at one point, they had a commercial for Meta, and it was like this ex-soldier, and he was blinded in some sort of accident or whatever, military accident, and so he's blind. And the whole thing about him was he put on his Meta glasses, and it made his life better because he could be at the restaurant and say, Meta, is hamburgers on the menu? And then Meta could tell him because of the glasses. Now, don't get me wrong, that's great as a blind person, but I thought to myself, geez, like, dude, you're blind because of your job. And, they sent you off to go fight people who you probably didn't need to be fighting. And now your booby prize for all that is a shitty pair of Zuckerberg glasses to try and help you read a menu. Like all of this stuff, if you look at it, all the videos and the commercials and stuff, it was all just straight up propaganda and really ineffective propaganda when you think about it. Like we should be helping this guy out. We never should have, he never should have been in that war. But now, okay, well, give him a pair of Meta glasses and everything will be great. It was just tacky. The whole event in that sense was tacky. Nobody seemed to really care. Like I said, the only person who seemed happy to be there, believe it or not, was Melania Trump. She seemed happy to be there. Like every time a fighter would come over and, shake Trump's hand or something, you could see her looking the fighter up and down and saying, oh, yes, I remember what a real man used to look like. I'll only charge him half rate. And yeah, so I think Melania had a good time looking at the beef. But other than that, I don't think many people had a great time. Last thing, and let me see if I can dig up this clip here. This will tell you everything you need to know about the event and how tacky it was. So after each fight, they'll get the fighters into, give their thoughts on the event and all that good stuff. And then last night, one guy came out. Let me see if I can find it. Did I not save it? Okay, I didn't save it. So one guy, Josh Hokett, came out and he gave his interview after the fight. And then at the end of the interview, he basically accused Michelle Obama of being a man and time and place for that stuff. And I thought it was really poor form for this guy to come out and basically accuse Michelle Obama of being a man on, live TV. So that was kind of tacky, to say the least. So let me just show you this clip. Just save it to my desktop. Sorry, I thought I had saved this previously to go on live, but I guess not. There we go. Present video. Come on, baby. Hope everyone's having a great day. Here we go. Josh Hokett, post-match. Why is this not showing up? There we go. There we go. Just put this up. Get my ugly mug off it. Need a haircut, man. when you retire, your whole life goes to shit, to be honest with you. You know, I haven't had a haircut since then. All right, here we go.
Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America? Ladies and gentlemen.
You know, like that's something you'd see out of the WWF or WWE, whatever they're called these days. And it's not something you'd expect to see on the White House lawn. But, you know, like I said, it just shows you what we're dealing with here. The whole thing was tacky. Like I said, decent card, good card, decent matches, but other than that, I came out of it feeling a bit icky for all Americans, because you guys should be looking at this and saying, oh, like this is what our world leader is doing, you know. And don't get me wrong, I know that Americans have always kind of leaned in to American stupidity as a badge of honor. Like, you know, Americans are the most, you know, they'll be self-deprecating, I should say, as the next person about the dumb American. But don't try so hard to prove it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to try so hard to be proven. So those were my takeaways from the shit fest that happened last night. Nothing else to say about it other than that. Check out some clips and stuff. If you could see, once you see the clips, you'll absolutely know what I'm talking about. Very rah-rah-esque, which, don't get me wrong, is fine. Nothing wrong with being raw, you know, rah-rah-esque, but it was a little over the top on the military side. And it made me just wondering, like, is this all you guys have? Is this really all you guys have? Because if it is, you know, you got some work to do. The other thing that popped up during the UFC event. So one of the commentators is a guy named Daniel Cormier. Cormier is a former UFC fighter himself, former heavyweight champion, also former light heavyweight champion, I believe. Good fighter. He tweeted this last night, and let me just pull it up, and we'll read through it together. So Cormier, I'm probably going to get into a lot of flack for bringing this to light. However, I refuse to stay silent. The UFC is a sport that I'm deeply passionate about, and I will not tolerate this type of insider behavior. Shame on anyone who is trying to ruin this beautiful event. Now, if you read the actual DM that he received it from what I guess he had thought was Eric Trump. And if you say, hi, Daniel, I'm going to be attending the event. Saw you at casting. Hope to see you there. Yo, Eric, I didn't expect a DM from you. Excited to meet you, and much love to the family, brother. Then he says, anything you can tell me about the fighters tomorrow? Who you got winning? You placing any bets? Nah, I'm not actually allowed to bet on cards or anything. Are any of the fighters injured that you know of? I'm not quite sure why you're asking me this, but I think they're in good shape. I'll just cut right to the chase. Are any of the fights tomorrow rigged? I've been eyeing the Lopez fight, and I think an upset wouldn't be too unrealistic. Dollar sign, dollar sign. So I guess, you know, let me just cut the snake off the head. I can't believe I'm defending a Trump. I don't think any of this is real. I think Daniel Cormier has probably taken a couple too many punches to the head in his life. And he got this. Eric Trump claimed that it was a fake and it wasn't him. And it was somebody who, you know, had a fake account or whatever. And Cormier must have thought it was real. So Cormier posted this, and then after he talked to Eric Trump, he deleted it. But there was a bit of conflict, or not conflict. There was a lot of drama around this because you know, you got the son of the president basically looking to, you know, get intel on the fighters so he can make money. You know, my gut tells me, you know, Eric Trump is correct. I don't think Eric Trump is on some sports betting app, you know, looking to make a couple $100 off of Diego Lopez. You know, I don't think so. The guy is worth billions. So I think this was just Daniel Cormier not thinking before he posted. and not figuring out if it was real or not. So I just wanted to cut the head off that snake. I don't think any of that was real, but funny nonetheless. um, what else do I have to talk about? The other big news from yesterday was the Memorandum of Understanding that apparently, and I'll say apparently, was reached between the U.S. and Iran. Because the more you look at it, it's not going to happen. Like, it's all smoke and mirrors. I think nobody. I certainly don't believe that we're going to see an end of this conflict. Now, keep in mind, though, what an MOU is, and I've been part of lots of MOUs in my day. A memorandum of understanding is pretty much fuck all. It's an outline, for lack of a better word. This is what we're going to talk about now. Or this is our outline for what we're going to talk about when we meet and negotiate. That's all a memorandum of understanding is. So when Trump talks about, having achieved a deal or any of that stuff, none of that is true. This is just the MOU part. And after several months of back and forth now, we now apparently have an MOU which will be signed according to Trump in Geneva on Friday. I have my doubts because let's take a look at the MOU. We'll go point by point. And I think once you look at the MOU, you'll realize, yeah, none of this is going to happen. This is all just bullshit. So let me just add that in. Yikes, that is small. Okay, here we go. Oops. Let me see if I can make this bigger. What is going on, man? Okay, let me read it to you because this is not working for me too well. So basically, I almost had it. I got to learn how to do this better, like just the actual navigation of this StreamYard. So I'm not really familiar with it too much. Okay, let me read it to you, since it's difficult to see here. It's even difficult for me to see. So I'm going to whip up a copy of myself. That will look bigger. And here we go. The MOU. 14 points for the MOU. First thing you'll see with this MOU, these are all Iranian points, it looks like. So if Trump agrees to this, which I have my doubts he has, it basically means that, the U.S. has completely capitulated. And we know that that's not going to happen. So, okay, I think I figured this out now. What I'll do is I'll share my screen. Come on, baby. Okay, now we're cooking with gas. This looks like a better view for you guys. Can you see it? Oh, it helps if I add it to the stage. There we go. Come on. If you're asking yourself, what am I doing? I don't know. Okay, so that didn't help. I'll just read it. So here are the 14 points. Point number 1. Upon announcement of the MOU, both sides declare an immediate, complete, and permanent end to all hostilities in the region, including Lebanon. And it specifies Lebanon. So, what are the chances we get to Friday where Israel hasn't attacked Lebanon? I think those chances are slim to none. I think Israel is looking to do whatever they can to destroy this MOU and any sort of deal, any sort of peace negotiation between the US and Iran. I mean, it's pretty clear that Trump has wanted to get out of this war since last year, since the 13-day war. After that first day, he was like, great, we blew everything up, time to go home. Like he didn't want this from the start. And whatever the Israelis have over him is keeping everyone captive. So there's that. Then from there, you've also got, what am I doing? I'm going to remove this. I'll just read it. So I think with that, the chances of any sort of memorandum of understanding are few and far between, to be honest. I think that, yes, they can agree. The US and Iran can agree, but it'll be Israel that is the fly in the ointment, as per usual. And that case, I don't see that there's going to be any sort of agreement to be found between any of these guys, So that's my thought on that. Why do I keep screwing this up? Okay, I apologize. I keep screwing with the thing to make it better. And I think I just end up making it worse. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So that's the first point. Complete ceasefire, no bullets shed anywhere. Good luck with that. Second point, upon announcement of the MOU, the United States declares the immediate and complete lifting of the naval blockade. Okay, cool. So my understanding is the naval blockade is supposed to end today, and they're supposed to move the ships out. So we'll see if that happens. That's phase one. Phase two, after the signing of the MOU, so the first 2 points are before the signing of the MOU. After the signing of the MOU is phase two. That's the 30-day period that kicks in. During the 30-day period, the next point is upon the signing of the MOU, which according to Trump is Geneva this Friday, the United States confirms its commitment to non-interference in Iran's domestic affairs and respect for the sovereignty of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, whatever. Like that's like, how do you even enforce that? It's one of these things that, yeah, we'll throw it in the MOU, but there's absolutely no way to police or enforce it. So it's kind of a non-issue. Basically, United States is going to commit to not trying to overthrow the government every couple of years. It's basically what I took. And of course, how do you enforce that? How do you police it? You can't. Next point, upon the signing of the MOU, the United States affirms that it will not increase the amount of troops or military assets present in the region, nor impose any new sanctions during the negotiations. So they're not going to remove troops from the region, but they're not going to add to them, which, okay, fine. We'll see. Upon the signing of the MOU, Iran reaffirms its commitment to the Non-Proliferation Treaty and confirms it will never produce, develop, or acquire a nuclear weapon. Okay, cool. Iran seems to be on board with that. So again, we'll see. But I go back to, I don't think we're even going to get to Friday. But as part of this deal, Iran agrees to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, which they're already a member of anyway. So, I guess Iran is just going to reaffirm what they've already agreed to as being a signatory of this treaty. Upon the signing of the MOU, the U.S. declares that it will provide Iran with half of its frozen funds, amounting to $12 billion, to be made available in a non-reversible manner within 30 days, with the subsequent commitment to make the remaining half available during the subsequent 60 days. So basically, right now, Iran has got $24 billion worth of assets, which are being frozen. It was largely due to equipment that they bought back in the 1970s, to be honest with you. So they bought a bunch of military hardware from the US back in the 1970s, or they paid them for it. They never received the hardware. And then with the fall of the Shah and the Iranian Revolution in 79, the US basically has kept the money ever since. So this $24 billion, I don't know what the original amount was, but it's been there collecting interest for the last, however many, 47 years. So basically, the MOU says we're going to get half of that frozen assets within the first 30 days of the MOU, and the other half will be given to us in the 60 days after the initial 30-day period. So basically, Iran is saying you're not going to get any agreement until we get our frozen assets back. Okay, fair enough. But again, is the US actually going to give them money? I have my doubts. After all the crowing that Trump made about Obama giving back 66 billion, it was 6 billion of the frozen assets back when they were doing the JCPOA. I can't see Trump giving double that. I really don't. Next point. Upon the signing of the MOU, the U.S. will issue sanctions waivers for Iranian gas, oil, and petrochemical exports effective immediately, with a commitment to extend these waivers permanently once a final agreement is reached. Okay, so basically, we're going to waive all of our sanctions temporarily until we get a permanent agreement. Okay, fair enough. Upon the signing of the MOU, the U.S. will begin immediate consultations with Israel to present a short-term time frame for a full Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon, including points occupied following the 2024 Israel-Hezbollah agreement. So basically, Israel keeps, screwing up gunking up the machinery by not playing ball because they don't want to play ball and they don't have to play ball. Trump can say anything, the US can agree to whatever, but at the end of the day, you've got this rogue state of Israel who is just out there, mucking everything up. So basically, what this says is the US is going to work with Israel to get the hell out of Lebanon. Okay, good luck with that. Next point. Upon the signing of the MOU, Iran confirms it will reopen the Strait of Hormuz to commercial maritime traffic according to certain specified arrangements determined by Iran within 30 days. So that's basically, Iran is going to open up the strait for commercial traffic. However, notice this point here. According to certain specified arrangements determined by Iran within 30 days. So what that means is Iran and Oman have now come up with an agreement whereby they're going to start applying fees, environmental fees or service fees, whatever they want to call them. Basically, it'll be a tax on all these ships coming in and out. I don't think that's ever going to change. So now that's what that kind of caveat there is Iran's going to open it up, but there's going to be no fees. There's going to be new fees based on this new agreement. Next point. Upon signing of the MOU, Iran confirms it will. Oh, sorry, I just read that one. Blah, blah, blah. Next, we got phase 3. So phase 3 is negotiations on a final deal. That's the 60-day period, plus a possible extension. So they're already preparing to extend it. We know where this is going. The 60-day negotiating period will begin once all the terms of the MOU have been met in the previous 30 days. So in other words, what Iran is saying is, at the very least, unless we get what we're looking for with respect to our assets back, as well as the sanctions waivers, we're not even going to continue. So, we're not even going to start the next phase until we get all the points that we wanted in phase 2. So that's all that says. The 60-day negotiating period can be extended by mutual agreement. Okay, fair enough. During these 60 days, the U.S. will make the remaining $12 billion, I said. So that's phase 3 that I already talked about. During these 60 days, the U.S. will present plans for a reconstruction fund for Iran, amounting to a value of at least $300 billion, funded partially by Gulf states. This is the big one. If anybody thinks that the United States is giving Iran $300 billion, I got lots of bridges to sell you. I got lots of swamps to sell you. None of this is going to happen. So that'll be dead in the water. Number one, the U.S. doesn't have the money. Number two, it's just they're not going to, because that would just be the ultimate capitulation. Next point. The U.S. and Iran will begin detailed discussions on a permanent solution to nuclear-related matters, including enrichment, the existing uranium stockpile, and the fate of the nuclear sites. Okay, fair enough. And next point, the U.S. and Iran will begin detailed discussions regarding the lifting of all economic sanctions on Iran, including primary, secondary U.S. and UN sanctions, as well as the withdrawal of all UN Security Council and IAEA Board of Governors resolutions against Iran. So basically, Iran right now has got two sets of resolutions, or two sets of sanctions against them. Some of them are approved by the UN Security Council, and others are just US specific. So basically, the first phase or the second phase will remove the US specific sanctions, and then the phase 3 would have to get UN Security Council approval. Presumably, what this means is, right now the only thing that's holding up sanctions against Iran at the UN would be the votes of the US, France, and the UK. So the way I read that is they're going to get to a point where those three members of the Security Council will agree to lift the sanctions on Iran. Next point, a monitoring mechanism will be established to supervise the implementation of the final agreement. Okay. And so basically the same thing as JCPOA. And then the final agreement will be approved by the UN Security Council resolution. That's a big thing because it'll get the stamp of the Security Council, which kind of makes it official in the view of the world, So that's the 14 points. Like I said, after having read them and, mull them over in your head, you quickly realize that this is just more theater. I don't believe in a second that the U.S. will do any of this really. And I'd be, I hope I'm wrong, because it would mean an end to not only this conflict, but it would also mean the end of all of this permanent conflict within the Middle East. Because if the U.S. is not there, Israel is just going to have to figure out a way to get along with the other, nation states within the region. So, let's see what happens. But I would put the likelihood of any of this bearing fruit to close to zero, because, the way you read this, it looks like a full capitulation by the U.S. entirely. So we'll see what happens, but I have my doubts. Let's just put it that way. I think that this will buy time, which is what they're looking to do. Make it look like they're doing something. But in reality, it's just we need time to rearm. We need time to, figure out other ways to muck things up. So that's how I would take all of this crap that we see from Iran, to be honest with you. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the whole memorandum of understanding. Keep in mind, this is just phase 1 of a deal. An MOU, like I said, it's an outline of what you're going to talk about, and it's taken them this long just to agree to an outline. And I have my doubts that they've even agreed to it. Because if they have, if they're seriously agreeing to it, then it just means full capitulation. So I don't see that happening. In other words, I would ignore everything and anything that you read about the MOU in the next several days until we get to Friday. This is all going to be horseshit. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today, changing topics, would be the upcoming G7 meeting. Now, the G7 is meeting, I think they start meeting today, if I'm not mistaken. And the reason I bring this up is because there's just nothing going on with the G7. It used to be a time and place when the G7 meant something. I remember, in the 90s and early 2000s, every time there was a G7 meeting, it was a huge deal. You would hear articles in the weeks, maybe even months leading up to this G7 of what they were going to talk about. By the time the G7 happened, a lot of the work had already happened. And basically, the G7 was more of a formalized, all the leaders get together, shake hands, look like they're big and powerful. And but the actual work and what the decisions of the G7 and the communique to go out, that's all done well in advance. Now with this G7, I've looked around, none of that has happened. And it just tells me that the influence of the G7 and the cohesion of the G7 is not what it used to be, and it's all breaking up in front of our eyes in real time. Um, because they're going to talk very broadly about topics such as Iran or Ukraine or the cost of living with the price of oil and stuff like this. But nothing's been decided, it doesn't look like, because usually by this point, all of that stuff would have leaked out by now. And none of it's leaked out, which tells me that none of the pre-work has been done. That would be my guess. And it's a G7 meeting for the sake of having a G7 meeting. And don't get me wrong, I think that the Europeans and Canada and they're looking, Japan, they're looking to redo the G7. Mark Carney was out yesterday talking about a new world order and how at the G7 they can start the building blocks of a new world order and all this stuff. And I'm listening to this guy like, what are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? If you were going to establish, some sort of new world order framework, wouldn't you want the major players there? And by that I mean, when the G7 was formed back in the 70s, it was originally G6, then it became the G7, and it was largely the top 6, 7 economies in the world based on GDP at that time. But you look in 2026, it's a different list, and then also if you look at, forget about GDP, because all that is a nominal number based on the gross domestic product of a country. Your gross domestic product really doesn't mean much. And that's why most economists for decades have been talking about what's known as purchasing power parity. And basically, that's your GDP adjusted for real wages within that nation. And what you're looking there is all the Western nations that were high in both nominal GDP as well as purchasing power parity in the 1970s, they're all falling off the list. The only two nations in the top 7 now that are part of the G7 are the U.S. and Germany. The other 5 nations have fallen off entirely, been replaced by countries such as China, which is now number 1, India, Russia, Indonesia. Those are it. And then the U.S. and Germany. So, the whole makeup of the G7 in 2026 has, it's kind of become irrelevant, to be honest with you. Who cares about the economy of the UK, which is largely just a service economy now. The Germany's deindustrializing. Canada's a fucking basket case, doesn't know if it's going left or right. Neither does France. Italy. When was the last time anybody cared about what an Italian said? Rome. I guess my point is the G7, it used to be a big deal, and now you really got to search for info on it. It's not in your face. I'm a guy who follows this, and I had to look for stuff about the G7, and there's just nothing there. It's a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. So I wouldn't put too much stock into it. I think they're just flailing about because they don't know what else to do. So that's it for me. Those were really the three topics I wanted to talk about this morning as I enjoy my coffee. I don't know if you see this. This is like the mug I used to have at work. It says, I hate everyone I work with. And it's one of my favorite mugs, but it's so old now, it's so faded. But yeah, I need the coffee today. So I guess we'll end off here now with what did we used to call them? Two scoops of crazy. So for the two scoops of crazy, another thing that I picked up on, let me just share this and hopefully it'll share well. Come on, baby. This was going around Twitter over the weekend. And it says, the average American is now closer to Jeff Bezos in net worth than Jeff Bezos is to Elon Musk. The typical American household has a median net worth of roughly $193,000. Elon Musk's fortune sits at approximately 1.2 trillion, while Jeff Bezos has a net worth of about 247 billion. The distance between Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk is a staggering $953 billion, whereas the difference between the typical American and Jeff Bezos is roughly 246 million. So, couple things. First of all, the difference between the typical American Jeff Bezos is not 246 million, it's 246 billion. And then the other thing about this is anybody who reads this, if you got, a grade school understanding of math and percentages, you realize that this is all horseshit because yes, while Elon Musk is worth 1.2 and Bezos is worth 250 and your difference is 950 as they stay here, those are absolute dollar terms. What you need to look at is your percentage terms. And anybody, like I said, with a grade school understanding of math would look at this and put it together. And you say, okay, well, this is all just social media propaganda and nonsense. So I saw this over the weekend and I kind of had a chuckle at it, realizing how stupid people were. And then I saw this just this morning. And this was in the mainstream media. It was on Yahoo Finance, which is kind of a consolidator of various finance related websites. So I go on in this morning as I stumble out of bed and I check my morning news. And this was front and center on Yahoo Finance, which is a pretty big finance site. Oh, did I cut it off? Basically, it says, the average American, it basically, it's the same article. Elon Musk is going to be the first person. He's worth more than Jeff Bezos. And the whole article talks about how Elon Musk is now richer than Jeff Bezos, and Jeff Bezos is now closer to the average American. And it was basically the Twitter post in an actual article written by somebody at, MoneyWise. This was, and it was posted all over the internet by various other finance sites as well, including Yahoo Finance, which is where I pulled this up. So now I got to thinking, well, these journalists can't be that stupid, can they? Like, they can't really be that stupid. But then it dawned on me why this is being posted. It has nothing to do about stupidity. It has to do about the narrative. And you hear all this, negative stuff about Elon Musk being a trillionaire in the media and how the rich are getting richer, poor getting poorer. Like there's tons of articles like that been going around all weekend. But then it dawned on me with this, they want to try to change the narrative, and that it's not a problem with Elon Musk. Trillionaires aren't the problem, because, this guy, Jeff Bezos, who's number two, he's now in the same boat as the rest of us, is what I took away from articles like this. Like, we might not ever get to Elon Musk's level, but we still got a shot at Jeff's level. We still got a shot at that American dream. And that's what this is. It's just propaganda to keep the American dream alive. Because you ask anybody, are you as rich as Jeff Bezos? How's that billion-dollar yacht going? People look at, buddy, I can't afford milk. What are you talking about? So I whipped out the old spreadsheet this morning just to show you the actual percentages. They're fun. Plus, it's been a while since I got to use Excel, ever since I retired. So it's always good to screw around with that. All right, image. So come to Papa, add to stage. So real quick math, this literally took me a minute to put together. You got Elon Musk with a net worth of 1.2 billion or trillion. Bezos there comes in at number two at 247 billion. Average Yankee household is 193,000. So what the article is saying is Bezos, Elon Musk, he's $953 billion richer than Bezos. And Bezos here, if you look at him, this 246.9, that's the difference between Bezos' wealth and the average Yankee. So while Bezos is $953 billion poorer than Elon, Bezos is only $247 billion richer than the average Yankee. And the average Yankee, in terms of this math, is also, well, basically 1.2 trillion poorer than Elon. That's how you read this delta here. So you look at these numbers and you just say, like, what are these fools talking about? When you put it into percentage terms, yes, Elon is now 386% richer than Bezos. That's a lot. But Elon is, when you put it into percentage terms, Bezos is 1.3 million times richer than the average Yankee. The average Yankee is 6.2 billion times poorer than Elon. So everything's relative, right? But it just, my only thought is the reason they're putting this stuff out is, it's that whole American dream. You can get there. And Elon's just an outlier, but you're closer to Bezos than you actually know. So don't worry, just keep working the 3 jobs, keep living in shit, keep racking up the credit card, and you'll get there one day, because you're close to Bezos. Elon, yeah, he's a different cat, but there's only one of him. But the Bezoses and the Zuckerbergs of the world, we all still have a chance. And you look at these percentages and just realize that no, nobody has a chance. So I thought that was interesting, that a tweet was hitting the mainstream media as being analysis. Yeah, so take that for what it will. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. I am going to get more of this. Lots more joints. And I think I'll just go out in the yard and putter around and do some gardening and forget about the world itself. Again, have a great day. Again, congrats to Carolina Hurricanes for pulling off a great win with the Stanley Cup last night. And congrats to all the fighters who won. And congrats to Donald Trump with the whole propaganda campaign last night. I don't think it turned out as well for him as they were probably hoping. I think most people looked at the whole event and they just said, wow, this is just such a symbol of all things America and all things American decline. That's how I took it. I was kind of sad, to be honest. But yeah, it is what it is. It's the times that we're living in. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that share button. Put your comments down below. And I'll catch you tomorrow. Maybe I'll try to do this out as a daily morning coffee kind of thing. As I'm having my coffee, I can shoot the shit with you guys and go from there. I'm also going to set up an open mic for the public at some point, maybe this weekend. So yeah, like I said, hit that notification button so you know when all the good stuff is going to come up, and let's have some fun. I love talking about this stuff, and if you're watching this, you probably do too. So take care, everyone, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.